David Davis on this. Good morning to you.
Morning.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us here on TalkTV. I must ask you, first of all, actually, what Rishi Sunak had to say, and also what came out of the Treasury at the weekend. Because I know you've done some broadcasting since then, and pointed out that when you saw the Sunday Times in this story that we know now emanated from the Treasury and things that Jeremy Hunt had been discussing, Arch Remainer previously, apparently, all changed view there, talking about how we should perhaps have a closer alignment with the EU, Swiss style. It's all been denied on the record. Number 10 saying no one's discussing that. You actually put a call into Jeremy Hunt to find out what had been said, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I got a call at 8 o'clock on Saturday night, which, as you know from your previous occupations, very late for a Sunday paper call. I thought, good Lord, what have I been caught doing?
Could you narrow it down at that point?
No, there's too many options. And I was asked about this, and I thought, this is bonkers. I was around when the Swiss were negotiating this deal, 20 deals actually, as it turns out, and it was awful for them. But anyway, so the moment the journalist got off the phone, I rang up Jeremy. I said, what's going on? He said, oh, God, that's not true. And then he said, they must have overread something or overinterpreted. In fact, when I read the paper, it was from lots of anonymous people who bluntly weren't terribly well informed. I mean, some holding up the Swiss deal as a wonderful deal. It's not even for Switzerland. And others saying, oh, well, the Europeans are changing their mind. They're getting more friendly. And this is in their interest. It's always been in their interest to do a trade deal. Yeah. But the only difference now is they're in trouble. They're in economic trouble. Everybody in Europe has got a recession coming. Everybody in Europe has got difficulties. So they may pay a bit more attention, but it will take years. It's not going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah. It is fascinating. We need more access. It's like we've got as much access as the rest of the world, and, they seem to manage. I mean, yes, it's made life harder, but it's the EU choosing to make life harder rather than an absolute act as a result of Brexit, isn't it? Let's talk about what we're expecting Keir Starmer to say today, because yesterday Rishi Sunak, when he addressed the CBI, he had to deny these stories in the weekend, but he also kept focusing on stopping illegal immigration. But we had the CBI Director General basically saying that how vital it was that we had access to immigrant labour and we couldn't grow our economy. I thought this was a bit bizarre, given that we've had mass immigration on a huge scale, millions and millions of more people coming to this country to live. We've seen sluggish growth in our economy all that time. Now we've got Keir Starmer, the advances on his speech, saying that Britain must end its economic dependence on immigration, but he wants conditions on business to improve skills, training, pay, and invest in new technology. This is an interesting development, isn't it? How much do you trust this?
Well, I'm not surprised, but I want to start really with something else, if you forgive me, and that's Mr. Danker. We all treat him as a sort of
CBI Director General, yeah.
So on. We shouldn't forget that he was a special advisor in the Treasury in the dog days of the Brown administration.
Yeah.
The very same Treasury that went for the low pay, low skill, mass immigration thing in the first place. And of course, in those days, I was Shadow Home Secretary in those days. In those days, they used to claim they were tough on immigration on the one hand and actually open the doors on the other. So I'm not entirely sure I trust. What Keir Starmer has seen is that certainly in all the red wall seats, but in most of Britain, people don't want mass immigration. One of the reasons people voted for Brexit, I had guys, painters and decorators from West Yorkshire, I remember an exact conversation saying to me, the reason I'm voting for Brexit, Mr. Davis, is I want to stop mass migration. I said, don't you like foreigners? He said, no, I would do the same if I were them. It's just I have to have a pay increase in.
Yeah.
Now, that's key.
And we've seen that, and we've actually seen that. It's not just as a result of inflation. Before we were seeing all of that, we were already seeing inflation, wages going up in retail, in hospitality, and in building construction work, because we didn't have that mass influx, and employers had to pay people a decent living wage.
That's right. And bear in mind two things. I mean, number one, every country in Europe's got a shortage of labour. I mean, if you go to France, you'll find they've got a shortage of labour in the hospitality industry. Yeah. You go to Germany, same thing. I mean, Germans are now making special arrangements to let Turks and others in to Germany at the moment. It's not quite worldwide, but it's all of the West have got this problem. So it's not soluble. Secondly, I think I'm right in saying we issued about 300,000 work permits last year. So what sort of level of immigration do they want? Yeah. 300,000.
But also we constantly have this idea we need to let more people in. And again, the idea that yes, we have. I mean, and again, this is what the Director General of the CBI was saying. But we need to improve GDP. That's how we grow. Well, we haven't seen growth. On the contrary, you've got more and more people. But the businesses that go, oh great, I've now got someone who can come and pick my strawberries, or I've got someone who can make the coffee in Starbucks, or I've got somebody who can work as a waiter or a washer-upper in a restaurant. Well, that's all great and good. Where are those people going to live? Where are their children going to go to school? Which GP are they going to sign on to? And the reality is the people making these decisions, either in number 10, number 11, the Treasury, or in the CBI, these businesses, they aren't competing for those jobs, that housing, those school places, and those GP appointments because they live in a different, rarefied world.
Yeah, I'm afraid that's right. And the other thing to bear in mind is there are many sorts of immigration. And if you bring somebody who's a Nobel Prize-winning scientist to the country, they're going to improve the wealth of the country. Yeah. If you bring in a lot of people who are very low paid, they're going to depress other people's pay, and they're going to bring the average income down. The size of the economy goes up, but the size of the economy per person goes down, and the Treasury never understood that. I mean, I'll say one thing about these CBI characters as well. I used to be a director of a FTSE 100 company, in fact two, but one importantly in this context. I always took the view, we always took the view in that company, it was our job to train our work.
Exactly.
To invest in people. I mean, I'm afraid the British industry got lazy over the last 20, 30 years.
But we're told that British people are lazy. We're told, we know we've got about 5 million people who are working age who apparently just aren't on the rolls. They're not working. They're economically inactive. We're told some of them are waiting for operations. Some of them are on some sort of benefit, incapacity benefit. I mean, who knows what's wrong with them? Well, we are the sick man of Europe on that front. What if the argument for the businesses is actually we'd rather hire someone from Eastern Europe or elsewhere because they'll actually turn up to work and do a hard day's work? Yeah,
well, no, I mean, it's a complete misrepresentation to describe British people as lazy. It's not true. I mean, what is true is some of our benefit systems almost penalise people for work. And that's one of the things we really need to sort out. I mean, between now and the actual budget, as it were, between the mini budget and the actual budget, I'm hoping that, I know because I've talked to them, that the Treasury are going to focus on a number of things that affect our growth rate. And one of them is the way the benefit system works, so that people actually won't be penalised for working, and that's the issue. I was with somebody last night, and we were talking about actually how when you work forever. I mean, theoretically, I could have retired 8 years ago. And lots of people in my generation are still working in their 70s and so on because they want to and they enjoy their job and they're healthy. But if you're, as you say, if you're unhealthy, or if you're on a welfare system that keeps you idle, then you don't go away. That's what's happened with COVID.
We do have that problem.
A lot of people have found that it's actually it's not just hard work, it's expensive to go back to work. Yeah, exactly.
Let me also ask you about a couple of other stories. We've got reports from Ofgem that energy suppliers are failing vulnerable customers as we approach winter. I think a lot of people have been putting their heating on for the first time, or a lot of people sitting in an awful lot of fleeces under blankets and not putting their heating on because they're so fearful of their bills. But all 17 firms who are energy suppliers were told that they need to improve in terms of their treatment of vulnerable customers and putting them on, payment meetings, but they just simply couldn't afford. 5 were severely reprimanded. We are going to have a real issue going forward, aren't we?
Oh yeah, I mean, and in a way, this is not new. I mean, not many of us are on coin meters now, but in the past, I've led investigations that show that these companies are just completely careless when it comes to their own customers in looking after them, ensuring that they don't go cold and so on. And there is a duty of care. I mean, in business, you want to keep your customers. You want to keep your customers alive for a start, but you want to keep your customers. You want to ensure that they're properly looked after, that the service includes ensuring that people who have got difficulties are dealt with
absolutely
faithfully and sensibly.
In sharp contrast, a report on one of the front pages of the papers today is that IPSA, the Parliamentary Expenses Body, it says that MPs for the first time can use taxpayers' money to fund a Christmas party for them and their staff. They can pay for their cards, their decorations, refreshments, not alcohol. Sounds like a rubbish Christmas party, by the way. You wouldn't get away with that at TalkTV, I tell you what. But they can do that on the taxpayers' pound. Has anyone at IPSA or indeed MPs, have they been reading the room wrong?
I didn't see the story, so I'm quite surprised. But I think it's bonkers, frankly. I mean, it has missed the mood of the age, if that's what they're saying. I mean, look, there are lots of things we have to spend taxpayers' money on in terms of providing offices and services and so on. I'm afraid Christmas parties seem to me a bit of a strange pick, particularly this year of all years. You know, I mean, we do have parties, but most of us, at least I thought all of us, make it out of our own pocket.
Yeah,
I mean,
indeed. Can I just ask you, just final question? World Cup. Brilliant start for England and a really good start for Wales as well. Their first campaign in many, many decades in the World Cup. All this big kerfuffle about what happened off the pitch and armbands and taking the knee. Do you think that we really need to move to taking politics out of football, or do you think FIFA brought it all on themselves?
Oh, I think FIFA did bring it on themselves, frankly. I mean, I'm not a great fan of politics in sport generally. But when you have the World Cup in a country like Qatar with so many problems, human rights problems, I'm afraid it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen whether it's the English side or, frankly, whether it's the Iranian side. FIFA is a nightmare. I mean, the corruption, the way that they allocate these. I mean, we shouldn't forget the last one was in Russia, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, how do we pick these countries? Well, it's pretty obvious. It's the wallet that picks them.
Indeed. David Davis, we'll have to leave it there. Conservative MP, former Brexit Secretary, thank you very much for talking to us. 8:19 is the time. Up next, more on the World Cup with our TalkSport football correspondent live from Qatar. This is Talk Breakfast.